This is Jesse Perryman from the Flag Hunters Golf Podcast, welcoming you to another edition today. Today's a very special day. A very close, good friend of mine becoming a brother and a dear, deep, deep friend. His name is Alex Rose. He is an integrative life coach, and he resides on the big island of Hawaii. And you're going to really want to tune in to hear what he has to say about the game of golf, his relationship with it, and what his findings are, and what it means from a deep emotional, psychological, and a spiritual connection to get the best parts of ourselves integrated so that we can go and perform the best that we can be out there. Alex, it's about time, my friend.
Hey
Thanks for coming
Jesse.
on.
Oh man, it's a pleasure and a privilege.
Let's
And
go.
about damn time.
Yep, that's right. We've been talking about this for a while, and here we are. Integrative life coach. Let's talk about that, what you do on the Big Island and how you help folks.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a master's degree from Naropa University in mindfulness-based transpersonal counseling.
Mhm.
And after I got that degree, I moved out here, hung a shingle, started meeting with folks in my community. And yeah, I just really enjoy. I'm a innately curious person, and I find the human experience and the human evolution growth process to just be one of the most fascinating areas of inquiry. Um, and so I love what I do. I love hanging out with folks and asking them deep questions and learning how their mind works and learning how they orient themselves within the great grand existential cosmos of the human existence. And um, I enjoy working with couples and discovering the multifaceted depths of human communication and interpersonal relating. And more than all that, I love golf. I freaking love golf, man. And that's really what, uh, when we moved out here to Hawaii, my wife was like, after about 2 months, she was like, did we move here for Hawaii or did we move here for the 365 golf and the beautiful golf courses? And I think maybe unconsciously that that might have been the real drive. But
Yeah, I don't blame you.
yeah, yeah.
I don't blame you. Well, thank you for that intro. And folks, Alex is a pretty keen golfer himself. What's your handicap these days? You about a four,
Yeah,
three?
I hover around a 4 or 5, depending
Mhm.
on how honest I'm being with myself, how many gimmies I'm taking. I
So,
think we'll probably talk about that a little bit today.
absolutely. Not only being in the mental health care space, Alex is also a fellow golf fiend.
Yes.
Most of Alex and I's conversation are about how golf mirrors life and what's going on beneath the surface. And
I would
so,
almost call us golf philosophers.
golf philosophers,
That's
fellow travelers in this realm.
right.
Let's get right in. Let's get right in since we're diving in. When I'm gonna go off one of the questions that we have written here. So when most people think about golf, they think about a swing. But the longer I've played, the more I've realized golf is really a mirror. It shows us who we are. Do you think that's true?
I do. I do agree with that. And, obviously it's become almost like a cliche in the golf psychology world of how much our psyches show themselves to us on the golf course. Um, but for me, I almost like to take it a little bit farther. And one of the distinctions in my mind is when I invite people to play golf, or I get invited to play golf, is I try to figure out right away: is this a golf player that I'm joining on the course, or is this a golf lover?
Mhm.
Because I feel like there are two different ways to approach the game. A golf player is there because it's a wonderful recreational activity. It's fun. It's social. Maybe it's a reason to have a couple of beers on a Sunday and be outside with your buddies. But I think for guys like you and I imagine a lot of your listeners, we would fall into the category of golf lovers, people who view the game from a holistic lens of a life practice.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like for you and I, sometimes even borders on the spiritual practice.
Right.
Uh, I
Hmm.
would I would go so far as in my own system to refer to golf as a Tao, as a from the Tao Te Ching, Taoism, a way of living your life with principles and virtues and values and morals, a way to develop yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and relationally, because the communal aspect of golf is present there. So is golf a mirror? 100% yes. And is it also like a dojo, a church, a family living room? It could be so many things, and I think that's what is so wonderful about it, is how much we are able to, how far we can take our relationship with golf.
Hmm.
It can be so many different things. It can be simple, it can be fun, or it can be these other layers, these deeper layers.
Oh, what a great answer. I mean, that's very powerful. Really great statements there, Alex. What really does, and that begs the next question, and it segues perfectly into it. What does golf really reveal about us that sometimes life hides?
Mm, totally. Uh, I actually had this, I was thinking about this, my last round of golf a few days ago, where I was like, wow, I feel like when I'm on the golf course, I really learn a lot about myself. I discover a lot about myself.
Mhm.
Why don't I feel that way after a day of work? Um, my day-to-day life. And I think the insight I had in that moment was my life to life, my everyday is ultimately a point of survival to an extent.
Mhm.
You gotta work to make money. You gotta maintain your relationships so you're not alone, and you have community. You got to make sure there's food on the table. You got to take care of your pets. You got to take care of your family. Like there's life is pretty serious, pretty serious shit. Is it okay to
Yeah,
swear by the way on the
yeah,
podcast?
absolutely.
Okay, it's pretty serious shit,
Mhm.
and golf is when you boil it down, is one of the most ridiculous waste of time you could possibly engage in. It's 6 hours of driving to the golf course and swinging a metal club at a tiny little ball. I mean, it's the paradox of how it ends up being such a healing practice is really quite funny. But I think because the stakes are so low on the golf course, but they feel so high. Like
Right,
the stakes on the golf course feel as high as the stakes in real life, but we know they're not. It
right.
almost creates like a safe container. I think it creates a safe container. It certainly creates a safe container for myself to really like look at things and look
Mhm.
at my reactions, look at my behaviors, look at my processes, um, my identities, the performance side of things, uh, in a I don't want to say critical, but maybe in an honest way, in a kind of like a revealed way. That is, I think, when if I were to try to apply that to my everyday, I would just be paralyzed. I
Right,
wouldn't be able to get anything done.
right.
I would just be in my own process all the time. And I think that, therapy, life coaching offices are another safe place to do that kind of work. But your office job is not, and your family
Mhm.
dinner table is not. But golf certainly is.
Wow, what a great answer. And that again, I mean, that's just a perfect. We're segueing perfect right now into something that I know I've struggled with, and you and I have spoke to about this in past conversations about our identity and and why do we attach so much of our identity on the golf course to how we perform?
I mean, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that first. I have some thoughts too, but I feel like
Okay.
your process around this is pretty interesting in my mind.
Well, for me, it's perspective. And and it really goes back to growing up. It's like a lot of these incorrect ideologies come from wounding in childhood. So it wasn't safe for me to perform and be okay with whatever happened because it wasn't, I mean, as children, we don't have the prefrontal cortex. We don't have the neurobiology to ask ourselves objective questions and to put things in perspective. We take things literally. So uh, my identity was formed early on with based on performance. If I performed well, say in Little League Baseball, if I went 3 for 4, I was, one of the big men on campus or one of the big kids on campus. I was one of the cool kids. But if I went 0 for 4, I was a scrub. You know, Playing football, same thing. Or if you dropped a pass or whatever in a crucial moment, you were a loser and you sucked versus getting coached up saying, well, why did that happen? Did you run the right route? Did you do something, incorrect in the admin prior to? And let's correct that. So it's more of a mechanical thing than an identity thing. It's like, okay, so I'm going to get love and acceptance and appreciation if I perform well. But if I don't perform well, I'm going to be casted out. So for me, the healing with that has been recognizing that first and that awareness that, hey, you know what? I have people that love me dearly no matter what happens on, off the golf course, and I'm going to go ahead and go with that and choose to, through some healing around that and through some off the course work, that when I get on the golf course, especially in competition and tournament play, that I'm going to look at things objectively and I'm not going to have the identity wrapped around it. And it took a lot of work for me to separate that, and it's still work for me. Um, if I go out and shoot, 75 or 76 in a golf tournament, typically my first response is, oh, here we go again, another bad start, or here we go again, I'm putting in all this work and I'm not seeing the P&L on it, or I'm not getting the reward from putting in all the hard work. And so with that, for me, separating my identity from performance on the golf course still is a work in progress. But I think where I'm getting at with what I'm saying is separating who I am, who I really am. If I go out and shoot 75, that doesn't mean I'm a shitty person. That just means I shot 75. Let's go back and
Which by the way would I would be over the moon shooting a 75.
well, we've taught a lot of years of competition, though, Alex, and
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of blood, sweat, and tears poured into the game. But and I know that holds true for the guys and girls that play at the highest level. And in my opinion, kind of cleaning up my side of this conversation with identity, I look at Scotty Scheffler, and his identity is not wrapped around how he plays. And I think when we observe Rory in the last couple of years, Rory McIlroy, back-to-back Masters champion, that there was a shift there where he is no longer identified solely with what he is doing on the golf course. And I believe that it's freed him up tremendously. I was at the Masters. I saw him play. And there was a level of surrender out there, but he was fully present in the moment and engaged. And he was trying his ass off. But there was almost a vibe of peace around him. And it was palpable and impressive and something to be learned
Mm.
from. I would love to ask Rory that question of what shifted because you could feel it. And but something had to have shifted before he won his first Masters. Because I believe that if we get identified too much with what we do, I mean, we're going to chase it away.
Mm.
I want to be identified as being the number one player at my club or in the world or in my foursome or whatever. And it's like, well, that very thought ideology is going to chase it further down the road, and you're never going to catch it. So,
See, I find this is such an interesting question,
mhm,
and I think in my mind, um, this conversation, I want to take this conversation in the direction of what our inner critic is.
Absolutely.
And I think maybe underneath your question of like what was your question again? Is, how is our identity tied
Yeah,
up with our need to
yeah.
succeed?
Why is our identity so wrapped up in performance?
Perform right, right,
Hmm.
right. I think underneath that you could ask, why are so many people fully identifying with their inner critic?
Mm.
And I think that freedom that maybe you saw in Rory at the Masters is that kind of release from that identity.
Hmm.
And the thing, so when I talk about the inner critic with clients, the best way I feel it navigating this topic is to see the inner critic as actually a very valuable cognitive function, a
Hmm.
very valuable psychological mechanism.
Hmm.
Your inner critic is something that develops in you, sometime in your late childhood, early teens.
Hmm.
As you rightly pointed out, you started to notice it around the time you were playing sports, and your performance on the field translates into your social status amongst your friends. Um, and I think deeper than that, the inner critic is extremely useful for a developing human coming into ultimately social human universe
Hmm.
where we have to get along and we have to fit in to an extent.
Hmm.
Um, and so that inner critic is really useful. The inner critic is the thing that keeps me from, running down the street with my clothes off or
Right.
screaming profanities in the middle of a restaurant.
Sure.
It's the thing that inspires me to want to be a productive member of society,
Hmm.
and want to be a good husband and a good friend.
Hmm.
It's the thing that inspires me to want to be good at what I do.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it's very useful. I think the where it becomes dangerous is when that voice in our head becomes the only voice that we hear.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people, especially people who experience trauma in their childhood and teenage years. And I mean, you could even trauma little t or big T, right? Like your experience of being rejected or judged by your friends for your performance on the football field is a little T trauma or big T trauma, depending on how it affected you.
Sure.
Um, I think when we experience trauma for whatever reason, our instinct is to want to identify with that inner critic more and more and more and more,
Hmm.
right? Maybe if I just listen to what everyone else has to say about me and I compare myself to what they have to say about me, maybe I'll fit in better, maybe I'll be accepted, maybe I'll be loved, like you said.
Yeah.
um, but the evolution from that, and I think every adult human has a responsibility to eventually take this step. You get to a point where you become aware of that voice. You become aware of actually how little of it is your voice and how much
Hmm.
of it are the voices you heard throughout your
Wow.
life.
Yeah.
And you start to see it as a useful tool, but just that, a tool, not the central guiding principle, not the North Star of your inner
Hmm.
psyche.
Right.
And for me, the way I like to work with it, and I'm a pretty, as I'm sure you can already, as I'm sure your listeners can tell, I'm a relatively cognitive person, and we can talk
Hmm.
about different channels of knowing and experience. But I'm a pretty cognitive person. For me, when I notice that inner critic voice is there and I'm aware of it, what I tell it in my head, I go in my head and I say, "Thank you. That's very helpful information. I really appreciate that perspective.
Hmm.
I will take it into account moving forward. I will consider it seriously, and I'll consider the usefulness of that perspective seriously. And then I kind of like mentally like put the inner critic back on the tool shelf
Hmm.
and put it away. It's like, okay, it did its job. It gave me the hard feedback. It gave me the perspective, the awareness that has served me all my life to be a functioning member of society and a community member.
Right.
But it's just one perspective, and then I come back and I try to connect to I say my heart, but you can say the capital S self or the true self or the higher self, however you want to say it. I try to connect back to that voice which doesn't really speak in words, actually. It speaks in multiple different channels.
Hmm.
And I say, okay, with that information that we just received, how does that align or misalign with what I'm feeling in that more authentic inner channel?
Hmm.
Am I making sense?
Absolutely. I mean, that's I mean, those are powerful things. I think that, Alex, in your opinion, does it take a certain level of awareness to have that objectivity in identifying that inner critic, especially in the moment? Because our inner critic shows up a lot of times when we don't want it to. And, talking about performance on the golf course, especially in competition, that inner critic shows up if you miss a 3-footer for par. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how can we reframe that? I mean, you spoke like, how can we simplify the reframing of that in the moment?
Well, I like you said, it starts with awareness, and
Hmm.
maybe this is my training in mindfulness based practice.
Hmm.
But I always tell people, and I always remind myself, if you are aware of what's happening, if you're aware of the pattern, if you're aware of the voice, um, you've already accomplished the most important, most difficult, most meaningful step.
Hmm.
Um, and going back to your comment about forgiveness, and I know maybe we'll go into that deeper later on, but um, I can get to forgiveness so much faster when I acknowledge the miracle of my awareness.
Hmm.
You know,
Wow.
so I always start with a big pat on the shoulder, basically. If I miss that 3-footer and I go, "Oh, you fucking suck. You're such a loser," and I go, "Oh, hey, there's that. There it is. There's a hello, inner critic. Hello again."
Hmm.
Um, I immediately feel a sense of pride and joy at having caught it. Oh, good job,
Right,
good
right.
job, me.
Wow.
And that already creates a somewhat of a for me creates a kind of an inner nervous system reset right away.
Wow.
Um, but if it's really pestering you, or if it's something that you're actively working on in a
Hmm.
really intentional, mindful way, then one of the ways to deal with it, like I said, is to just have a conversation with it. Like
Hmm.
really, I mean, if you're a cognitive person like me, go into that inner dialogue and have a conversation with it. I think you do this too, Jesse. We talked about
Hmm.
speaking to the inner child.
Hmm.
It feels kind of silly the first time you do it. It feels a little bit like,
Hmm.
why am I'm talking to myself? This is so weird. How
Yeah.
is this going to accomplish anything?
Right, right.
But if you exist in that channel of language, it actually works to just have
Yeah.
that inner conversation. And you know what's amazing? What's a really shocking discovery is when it responds.
Hmm.
When you get to that point where you're having an inner dialogue with yourself, with a part of yourself, your inner critic, and then it has something to say, like,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up. You don't know me. You don't know me. You don't listen.
Right,
That's it.
right.
So you just continue that conversation. And I always come back to, thank you, gratitude,
Hmm.
awareness, and then gratitude. Thank you for that. Thank you for telling me that putt mattered.
Yeah.
You know, I
That's
appreciate that. That's
interesting.
valuable information for me.
Boy, that is real in time redistribution of energy because you can spiral out there easily. Especially if you attach yourself to that inner critic and you let that inner critic, like you said so beautifully a moment ago, about if that's the only voice inside your head and you're obeying it and you're listening to it. I mean, that for me, the whole theme for me and is how I talk to myself and being aware of that inner critic and reframing that. It's not demonizing it. There's a part of what people, in my opinion, fail to realize with the inner critic, especially on the golf course, is that it got you there. There's a part of that voice that got you there. There's a part of that voice that got you to hit balls, that got you to work on your putting, your chipping, and all of the sacrifices that you make to become the best player that you can be for most people that listen to this podcast. Um, so it needs to be handled, in my opinion, at least my experience, a little bit with some kid gloves. Like, hey, what is it saying? What is it truly saying, and what are the words behind it? And let's go have that inner dialogue to find out what those words truly are, because that's getting to the root the source of why that nick keeps happening, or why the pattern of self-communication continues to happen in the scenario where, you miss an important putt, or you miss a 3-footer for par or birdie or whatever it is. And, uh, me reframing it is like, well, I mean, it happens. Scotty Scheffler misses 3-footers. Denny McCarthy, Max Grazerman, the guys that are the best putters in the world, they don't miss them very often, but they do. So what exempts me from it? It's a part of the game. So, I mean, even just a simple thing like that. But the one thing that you said that I didn't realize, and maybe your listeners might identify with this as well, is how powerful our words are, whether they're on the surface or beneath the surface, and how they affect our whole biophysiology. So let's get into that a little bit, just out of my own curiosity, Alex. Why do words affect us in the most profound ways, even if we're not aware of it?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting question, isn't it?
Mhm.
Where my mind goes first is to one of the fundamental truths that I personally buy into, which is that ultimately we are nervous systems before we're
Mhm.
minds.
Mhm.
Our minds are built on top of our nervous systems.
Mhm.
And learning what our nervous systems are, and learning how to interact with our nervous systems, how to support them, how to build scaffolding around them, is, I think, probably one of the most valuable human pursuits any individual could undergo. And you look at a lot of these traditions, wisdom-based traditions. A lot of it's about the nervous system:
Mhm.
meditation, yoga, prayer, practice, physical practices, chanting, dancing. All those things are technologies that allow us to directly interface with our nervous system.
Mhm.
On top of that is our brain. And for whatever reason, and I don't know why, I don't know what the answer is. It probably has to do with the fact that we are social communicative creatures, and we've learned to survive and evolve through communication. Our brains, I think, at least my brain certainly primarily operates through the language channel. Like I
Mhm.
said, there's different channels. Some people are much more in like the what's the word, kinesthetic
Mhm.
channel,
Yep.
the felt channel, the physical
Sure.
channel.
Mhm.
A lot of people, like my wife, are very much in the emotional channel,
Mhm.
where their body speaks to them through emotional content. Um, my brain operates in the language channel. I call it the cognitive channel,
Mhm.
and I think that ultimately that channel, that language channel, is communicating directly with my nervous system,
Mhm.
whether I realize it or not. Both ways. I know that inner critic is much louder when I'm in a sympathetic nervous system state, where I'm
Mhm.
activated, where I'm
Mhm.
a little anxious, a little nervous, a little excited. Um, I know that channel, that the pace of my inner dialogue is faster in that channel. Um, and so if my inner cognitive language dialogue channel is a reflection of my nervous system, then of course the conscious response to that with my own thoughts is also going to interface with my nervous system. So in short, my answer to your question, and this is all just a working hypothesis. I don't think anyone knows what the answer is yet. Um, it's that when the way you talk to yourself is like prayer, like breath work, like
Mhm.
chanting, like dance. It's a actually a technique, a skill, a technology of nervous system interface, nervous
Mhm.
system interaction that can be trained.
Wow. What
How
an
do you feel about
incredible,
that
I
idea?
mean, just that's an incredibly powerful answer. And that makes an extreme ton of sense. It really does. And I think that, at least for me listening and, being on this journey with everyone else, that's useful, that we actually can become aware of the words that we choose to speak to ourselves. And it is a choice once we become aware. And then we can reframe that and have a direct interface with our nervous system. Scripture would call it speaking life into yourself. And other traditions would probably echo that same sentiment. Yeah, I mean, I just laugh and think as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, and it was like, would I talk to people that I love the way that I talk to myself? I,
I'm so glad. I'm glad you said that because, and I also want to be aware that as deep as this conversation goes, Jesse, I want to make sure that people listening to this feel like they have something to do
right.
afterwards. Feel
Sure.
like they have something to try.
Sure.
And when I work with clients, I always go to this idea of experimentation is your greatest asset.
Right.
Just experiment. Sometimes you need to experiment with doing the exact opposite. I think a lot of golf coaches you've had on your podcast have talked about this idea of training the opposite movement.
Yeah.
So you understand what that feels like, so you can understand the movement that's getting you in trouble, what that feels like,
Mhm.
and find somewhere in the middle.
Right.
I think the same thing applies to working on our brains, working on ourselves, working on our relationships to ourselves. So in that regard, I want to share a story about a client I had who had one of the most vicious inner critics I've ever met. And just to paint the picture a little bit, we're talking about a 200 plus pound, fully tatted ex biker. That's what we're talking about. All right.
Okay.
He's no joke kind of guy, tough dude. And he would come in and sit with me, and it was really clear that the way he talked to himself was just really cruel
Mhm.
and harsh and mean. So we did an experiment one time where I said, okay, just tell me what the inner critic's saying, and I'm just going to write it down. So I started writing down everything he was saying. And I'm a loser. I'm pathetic. I have no motivation. I have no discipline. Whatever. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, I paused him and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna tell you everything you just told me, as if like I believe it about who you are." So I start going. I start saying, you're such a little bitch, and you have no backbone, and whatever. Your tattoos are ugly, and everybody's scared of you, and like whatever. And after like not even like halfway through the list, he literally stood up and he was like, "Don't you fucking talk to me like that." Yeah, like he got really, really activated and really upset.
Wow.
And it was one of those, that was one example of an experiment where just externalizing that voice really helped them realize just how out of alignment it is with
Right.
how he genuinely feels about himself. Going back to the higher self, that true self, that center channel. Um, Hearing it externalized made him realize how far of alignment it is from him. So for someone on the golf course who maybe wants to work on their inner critic, um, experiment with it. So
Mhm.
for example, go out there one day and just be like, you know what, like for today, I'm going to be the most toxic, positive version of myself that's ever existed. Like get out there, miss the 3-footer and go, it's okay, buddy. You're great. You're a superhero, right? Like just go complete opposite like go full on cheesy,
Right.
like doe-eyed lover boy to
Right.
yourself for a
Right.
round.
Right.
And then next time go out there and do the opposite. Go out there and just be like, you think you're hard on yourself? Like turn it up to 11,
Right.
like I want you to stripe a drive down the middle of the fairway and go, it's still only 250.
Right.
You're pathetic and weak,
Right.
and just see
Right.
what that feels like. Or if 4 hours of that feels like a lot, then just do it for 2 holes.
Right.
Or even better, oscillate. Try a hole where you're like Mickey Mouse, and then try another hole where you're, in Dante's Inferno,
Right. Right.
and just really just like you would on the range, where you're, if you're working on fixing a slice, try hitting a big draw, pull, hook.
Right.
Apply that same principle to how you would experiment with working on yourself in the inner domain.
Well, that's a great, those are great suggestions. I'm going to try that. and just see what the experience is. You know,
You'll learn something for sure.
oh, for sure. It's like my experience with this topic right now, Alex, has been, the awareness of catching the thought, catching the inner critic piping in. And that's been good. Just to be aware of that has been good. And then to speak life into myself. And I
Mm,
really do like the comment about nervous system interface, and that is a technology. And I liken it as to when you're in meditation or when you're focusing on something, if you're practicing, breathing through the dantian, if you will, just focusing on breathing through the belly button. And if your mind drifts, you just continuously bring it back to that exercise. And it's the same thing in how we speak to ourselves and how we interact with the inner critic. And the more that we practice it, the more that awareness muscle increases, and the less of an emotional charge happens when you hear it. It's like it's awareness, it's working that muscle out, and it's healing at the same time. And for me, it's helped me to get underneath to some of the erroneous beliefs that I had about myself through that exercise. So it's been extremely enlightening and very powerful. And it's been, quite frankly, the most powerful tool or thing that I've ever worked on, including my golf swing. I don't think Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy or Nelly Korda or anybody who's very proficient at this game is calling MFing themselves and telling them they suck and they're losers and they're never going to win or amount to anything when they're like 10th in the world or something. I mean, I don't think the inner dialogue is the same. And for years, I've always thought, like, what is it between somebody, in my opinion, who can be on the PGA Tour, who has all of the physical tangibles, all of the measurables? They hit it a bajillion miles. They hit it dead straight. They hit it solidly on the face most of the time. They're great putters. They have fantastic wedge players, but yet they're not out there. And this could be a very part of that phenomenon of how they speak to themselves and what, through that language, that internal communication, how they view the world and how they view themselves. And I'm convinced that that's a big part of it. It may not be the only part, but
mm.
it's a big part of it. How we
Well,
there's
it's interesting. You said something earlier about, the more you chase this idea of becoming something, the farther you push it down the road. You're right. You said
yeah,
something along those lines.
yeah.
And I think that poses an interesting question, which is what's the difference between paralyzing expectation
Mm,
and self-belief?
hmm.
Because I do think there's a distinction, and maybe that's part of the why some of those players are talking about don't make it is
Hmm.
because they have the skills, but they don't have the belief.
Interesting.
They have the expectations,
Hmm.
but they don't have the belief.
Can that belief be reframed and reorganized by how we speak to each other and how, if we become aware of that said belief, can it be changed?
I think it can. I mean, I think there's a lot of kind of moving pieces in this conversation that around this. I think this idea of reflecting on what healthy expectations are, what appropriate expectations are. I don't expect to shoot for myself 75 every time I go out.
Hmm.
If I did, I would probably not want to play golf very
Hmm.
often.
Hmm.
um, but I also believe that I could.
Hmm.
I also believe in that it's possible that I'm
Hmm.
capable of that.
Hmm.
Actually, I know that I know I'm capable of that. I know that's a possibility.
Hmm.
I just don't expect it.
Interesting.
Um, but I guess to answer your question, I think I again I'm speaking as somebody who operates largely in the cognitive channel, in the language channel. The narrative that I'm actively telling about myself really matters when it comes to my experience of life.
Mm-hmm.
It really matters when it comes to how my nervous system shows up day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to do a lot of work personally myself in that inner narrative,
Mm-hmm.
the story I'm telling about my life and about who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that work involves therapy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
talking to professionals and externalizing that narrative so I can look at it. It involves journaling. It involves deep, meaningful conversations with people I trust. You know, you're one of those people. Um, so I do think, yes, I think there's lots of work that can be done when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to believing in yourself. And I think the way you talk to yourself is a part of that. I think rearranging your expectations appropriately is a part of that.
I like the way that you reframed expectations with possibilities.
Hmm.
Like, it is possible to go out and play well. And we do have the capability of that. We do have the skill of that. But the expectation of it, it almost puts more pressure. It's like it feels like, oh, I expect to go out and play well every day. But what happens if you don't?
Mm.
Because I mean, golf in and of itself it's a perfect game played by imperfect people. And we don't have perfect conditions all the time. I mean, you live on the Big Island, you're dealing with trade winds in the afternoon and it blows out there.
That's true.
I live in California. I live on the Monterey Peninsula. It blows out there. I mean, you've got uneven lies, you've got different conditions. Your body may feel weird. You might wake up and your neck might be stiff or something. And even with that, I can literally feel in my body an energetic shift between expectations versus possibilities and
Mm.
and the acceptance of that particular day and just going with it. I mean, I had Lydia Ko on the pod a few years ago, and I love Lydia. She keeps it very, very real, and she's one of the best players to ever walk the earth. And she told me, she said, if I wake up and my neck's stiff or I'm not feeling it or I'm not feeling good that day, I just go with it and just let it be. I'm just like, whoa, that's so incredibly simple yet very profound. I mean, she said it as like, duh. Like, I mean, how easy can you make it on yourself? And, through my experience, most of my golfing experience, not all, but most, I've made it about as difficult on myself as possible. And only recently, in all of our conversations, and you've helped me out a lot with that, detaching identity from performance in the way that I have spoken to myself, speak life, and with that exercise of going to the extremes, I think that's really powerful. And the parallel when one of us or anybody who's listening takes a lesson and if you're getting the club stuck inside and you're flipping your hands at it as a result, a cognizant golf coach is going to have you do the opposite, what that feels like, so that the brain, the body, and the nervous system have the two templates to choose from in the middle. And that was a great comment and a great suggestion, by the way. So thank you for that, Alex. A lot.
Mm. I got another a great experiment on my to-do list actually this week, that one of my good friends who's very like-minded like us suggested is I'm going to play from the reds. I'm going to play
Mm-hmm.
from the ladies' tees,
Mm-hmm.
and I am going to go out there and I'm going to break par. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to do it. I'm going to drive the greens and I'm going to make lots of birdies. I'm going to break par, and I'm doing it because he made this comment. He said, "Man, every time you have a good round going, you get scared.
Mm.
You get scared. You don't believe that you don't believe that you have earned that low score. You don't believe that you can keep it going for 18 holes." So he's like, "I think you should just go out there and have a couple of 70s and 69s and 71s from the ladies' tees." And just know that, like, man, golf is golf. Doesn't matter how long the hole is. Golf is
Right.
golf. It's still hard. And I did it. I can do it. I can break par. And then when you start stepping back tees, it's just that belief component is maybe more in alignment with the expectation component. So, a thought that I had, this just popped in my mind when you were talking, that the difference between expectations and possibilities and beliefs. I'm sure you've had this moment. I know I chased this moment. I'm sure all of our listeners chase this on the golf course. That moment where you're standing over the ball and you're expecting it to do something. You feel the inner possibility of your ability to execute on that. And you believe it's going to happen. And then it happens.
Yep.
And that's the moment where all everybody's go, oh, he's coming back tomorrow for more, that'll keep you coming back, right? It's like that experience where those three things are in alignment. So I think there's an interesting question there of, how do we get our expectations, what we know is possible within ourselves, and our belief of what we're capable of to all come into alignment at the same time across 65 golf shots over 18 holes.
Yeah, absolutely.
In theory.
Yeah, in theory. Well, I mean, it's being exemplified out there, and I do believe that there's some folks out there that leave breadcrumbs if we're attuned to it and we're observing.
What do you feel like are the breadcrumbs that you are most excited to have discovered so far in your journey?
Um, I listen to Scotty, his press conferences, Scotty Scheffler, number one player in the world, and what he has to say. He seems to have things in its proper perspective, but he also works his tail off. That guy is working his tail off. He practices and plays and works at it and works out and is with his coach quite a bit. That showed me that if you're in alignment with those three possibilities, those three planes, if you will, that you are going to stack the deck in your favor. Is it going to happen every day? No. But Scotty has that
Sometimes the wind's going to gust.
Hey, how about if you go out and you shoot whatever you shoot, you play the best round of your life and you get beat? I mean, are you going to be upset with that? Or are you going to be like, I just played the best round of my life. Let's go celebrate type thing. So having it in its proper perspective for me has been a real revelation. And it's still a moving target. It's still a work in progress, and it probably will be for a while, but that's okay. I think for me, and somebody very close to me said that you can work hard and you can still have a really good time. You could still have a good time with it and have fun. And it was getting to the point last year where I just wasn't having any fun on the golf course because my expectations were out of control.
And yeah, I've been there too.
And the inner critic was in full flight. Expectations and inner critic.
It's a dark night of the soul.
My goodness, they go hand in hand, my friend.
It's a long drive home when you're in the car going, why do I spend hours of my life doing this?
Right.
What's the point? Actually, I think I've called you a few times on those drives home.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Jesse, you got to re-inspire my love of the game for me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In a perfect world, at least from my perspective, I would like to work hard and go out and practice hard and really have the dreams of playing, high level amateur golf. But the perspective that if it doesn't happen on a day-to-day proposition, that's part of the game. That truly is part of the game. And continue each round as a chapter and looking at each chapter objectively. And the things that I did well and the things that I can work on so that next time I can continue to stack the deck in my favor. I don't think that people are going to demonize a math problem. You're going to try to go back to the basics and try to figure out where the error happened. And then when you get the error, you go, oh, okay. Typically, it's very simple. But I do think that the way that we speak to ourselves and that inner critic is it can give life or it can take it. And we go out. If you think about the ridiculousness of this, Alex, is like you and I are both members of private clubs. We spend a stupid amount of money to go out and play golf with our friends. We spend 3 to 6 hours out there on the regular, and let's make the most of it. Let's have it be a
Mm.
joyful exercise versus being in the military type thing. Not
Well,
demonizing
that
the
gets back
military.
to my comment at the beginning of being a golf lover means seeing the game as more than just recreation and hobby, seeing
Right.
as like I said, for me, it's a safe container to work on myself.
Yeah. Wow.
I love when I have an experiment I want to try
Yeah.
and I can think of a way to bring that experiment onto the golf course.
Right.
Or if
Wow.
there's a new practice I want to experiment with, a new
Hmm.
type of a new sort of like meditation
Sure.
uh, that I'm really excited to see. Okay, can I apply this in real life? Well, the first place to try it is on the golf course because it's low
Right.
stakes. Like,
Right.
okay, if it doesn't work on the golf course, then I just save myself a bunch of frustration trying to make it work in real life. And if it works exceptionally well on the golf course, then man, I get really excited to go to work the next day and try it. When I'm sitting in the chair across from a client.
Wow. That is absolutely well said. Safe container. I like that. And since the golf course
And then
provides,
and then I don't feel so bad leaving my wife behind for 6 hours. Honey, I'm
yeah,
working on myself.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I also think that, that's such a great point, and being out on the golf course is instant manifestation for sure. Boy, your thoughts will manifest quickly out on the golf course. In real life, it tends to be delayed, thankfully. Um, but at least on the golf course, if you say don't, it's typically going to happen. Um, but Alex, this has been quite a conversation, and it's my wish and hope to have this conversation ongoing with you, my friend, on this podcast, because I think that the information that you've provided in our conversation is really going to plant a lot of really positive and powerful seeds in people's
I
minds
hope
that
so.
listen to this, and that's the intention of this, 100%. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
we're all going through it, and we're all human, and we're all at some stage in our journey. And I think these are important tenets to talk about and discuss. So thank you for your expertise,
Yeah.
your education, and your contribution to the world, my friend. It's very important.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, so it's quite enjoyable. I love talking to you.
And we will
Uh,
continue. And I want you to come back on, pal. Come on. Give me a
I'm looking
commitment.
forward to it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Alex, I can't thank you enough. And to the listeners, Alex has graciously given the green light to put his information on, and he's available to be worked with one-on-one. Do you work in person and on Zoom, Alex?
Yeah, I do.
Awesome. Thank you for your service to humankind, my friend, and your
Well,
own journey.
thank you for creating this podcast. I know I get excited every time an episode drops. So, and I always learn so much from the guests you bring on. And you're a wonderful host and a wonderful friend.
Thank you, brother. Right back at you.